I can knock him out, I can submit him, whatever. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm gonna knock him out in the first round or submit him in the first round, because he walks forward. I'm not gonna need to close the distance with him. Since the first moment, we are gonna find each other in the center of the octagon. So yeah, it's gonna be a first round finish.
With the Ilia versus Charles fight?
I think Ilia, man. I think he's going to be way undersized against Charles. I just don't, unless Charles can sub him, maybe if he hurts him, but it's going to be tough, I think. Because Charles gets hit a lot, and Ilia puts people away. I'm excited about it.
Ilia Topuria has just issued a brutal warning to Charles Oliveira, promising him a first-round KO. However, Ilia Topuria rocked the recent open workout ahead of UFC 317, showcasing razor-sharp striking combinations and explosive footwork under his coach's watchful eye. His lean yet powerful physique cut through pads seamlessly, reinforcing his jacked, confident demeanor as he gears up to dethrone Oliveira in Las Vegas. MMA pros have just warned Charles Oliveira not to fight Ilia Topuria, as their fight is just around the corner. On the other hand, Curtis Blaydes picked Charles Oliveira to win, saying he believes Oliveira has the hands and grappling to cause problems for Ilia Topuria. He pointed out that Ilia has been on a strong run but hasn't faced a grappler as dangerous as Charles Oliveira. Blaydes mentioned that Oliveira's pressure and the fact that he doesn't have to worry about takedowns would give him the freedom to let his hands go. He predicted Oliveira could stop Ilia on the feet, possibly in the third round.
I'm gonna go Oliveira just because I believe he has the hands and the grappling. He presents more issues than I think any of Ilia's past opponents. He's had a great run, but he hasn't faced a grappler who's as dangerous as Oliveira. And I just think Oliveira being able to pressure and to pretty much not have to worry about takedowns will open up his hands more. And I think he'll be able to stop him on the feet, maybe third round.
However, Ilia Topuria delivered a harsh warning to Charles Oliveira, confidently stating that it doesn't matter whether he knocks him out or submits him. Either way, victory is certain. However, he firmly believes he can finish Oliveira in the very first round. Topuria also pointed out that Oliveira's constant forward pressure plays right into his hands, making a knockout even more likely.
I can knock him out, I can submit him, whatever. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm gonna knock him out in the first round or submit him in the first round, because he walks forward. I'm not gonna need to close the distance with him. Since the first moment, we are gonna find each other in the center of the octagon. So yeah, it's gonna be a first round finish.
Stephen Thompson said he'd love to see Oliveira win, but he's picking Topuria. He called Topuria the full package, tough, powerful, and able to take shots. Thompson pointed out that no one wants to go to the ground with Topuria because of his high-level grappling. He did note that Oliveira's long frame and reach make him dangerous, especially with submissions like guillotines, since he can catch opponents in unusual positions. Still, Thompson leaned toward Topuria because of his raw power and all-around skill set.
Man, I would love to see Oliveira win, but Topuria, bro, I mean, he's the whole package. He is the whole package. He's tough as nails. He can take shots. He's got heavy hands. Nobody wants to go to the ground with this guy because he's very high level on the ground as well. Now, is he on the same level as Oliveira? Oliveira is very long, very lanky, so he can catch a lot of guys in a lot more awkward positions than most because he's got a long reach, especially when it comes to the guillotines and things. But with strict, straight power, I'm going for Topuria. I think he's just got the whole package.
Joe Rogan spoke highly of Charles Oliveira, calling him a dangerous, high-level fighter who has the skills to beat anyone in the octagon. He looked back on Oliveira's earlier career, noting how he used to fold under pressure and lose focus during tough situations. But Rogan believes something changed after Charles became a father. Since then, Oliveira has fought with a new sense of confidence and fearlessness. Rogan acknowledged that some fans still bring up his past losses to fighters like Cub Swanson and Paul Felder, but he argued that those defeats no longer reflect who Oliveira is today. Instead, Rogan emphasized how much Charles has evolved. He's now focused, driven, and one of the best fighters in the sport.
If you go and watch Charles Oliveira, some of his earlier fights, it looks like he kind of like folded.
Yeah, for sure.
And then something happened after the birth of his daughter where Charles Oliveira becomes this assassin.
Yeah.
And he's just and he just has no quit in him. He's just an animal.
Yeah.
And it's just like everybody just forgot about that old, like, no, he's the man.
Yeah.
And they forgot about the Cub Swanson fight. They forgot about all these other fights. They forgot about the Paul Felder fight. They forgot about those fights. Like, that fight. What is he capable of
now,
when he's on?
If he wants to move up 100%, I support it. Now, does he defeat someone like Islam Makhachev? Because people aren't paying attention of what Ilia Topuria is doing. He wants to be on that top spot, pound for pound. I think he's on top 3 right now, 100%. He knows this is his path to get there. Why not take off the pound for pound? So I support it. Let him try. And I'm having a joy watching Islam defend this title. Of course, make that cheddar.
Robert Whittaker said the 155-pound division is the most exciting in the UFC right now, especially with Ilia Topuria entering the scene. He mentioned Topuria's statement that the UFC promised him a title shot if he gave up the featherweight belt. Whittaker believes that when champions move to a new weight class, they should get a chance to fight the top contenders right away. However, he also recognized that this can be frustrating for fighters who have worked hard to climb the rankings. Whittaker added that in the end, the UFC will likely make decisions based on what brings in the most money.
I think the lightweight division is the most exciting division right now. It's just death row in the lightweight division at the moment. Like the top 5, dude, that guard up there right now, it's just killers, man.
But especially with Ilia Topuria entering the mix, right? The whole big story over the past week was he obviously vacated the title at featherweight, but apparently he said the UFC told him, we promise you a title opportunity if you vacate. That's what he told Spanish media. Or I think he said as a backup he would fight Charles Oliveira. And now they've gone back and forth. What do you reckon, Rob?
I don't know what was promised or anything, but I feel like if you're in a lower division and you vacate the title, you should go straight to the top of the pecking order. I'd like to see him go straight into a title shot. Okay. Understandably, it can be tricky that way because there are a lot of guys, like, styles make fights. So if the champion of a lighter division has a better style to beat the guy in the high division, where's the fairness of that? Because that guy may not get through 10 guys to get to a title shot. He may not get through the contenders. Yeah, I just feel like there should be a certain amount of weight for being the champion of the division already. I can also see the side of the argument for the guys in the division that have been like, brother, like, I've had to slog, especially in the lightweight division, like, I've had to slog my way to the top of this division, and it is death row there. I think the UFC's going to do what makes them the most money.
Terrence McKinney said he loves Charles Oliveira and believes people are underestimating him. Still, he picked Ilia Topuria to win the fight. McKinney predicted that Ilia would drop Oliveira during the fight and that there might even be a few 10-8 rounds. However, he gave credit to Oliveira's toughness, saying he doesn't think Charles will get finished. McKinney could see the fight going the distance, with Oliveira possibly winning one of the championship rounds, but overall he believes it will be a dominant and possibly one-sided performance by Topuria. He called it an ugly domination in Ilia's favor.
I love Charles. Yeah, I think people are sleeping on Charles, but I still think Ilia was gonna win due to him dropping him. There'll probably be a couple 10-8 rounds there, but I think Charles don't go to sleep, so I can see it making it to the last round and Charles winning at least one of the championship rounds, but it's definitely going to be a domination by Ilia, I believe.
Paddy Pimblett said he thinks Ilia Topuria has a good chance to defeat Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. He called Oliveira a tough opponent, but pointed out that his chin might not be as strong anymore, especially after nearly 40 fights and taking a lot of damage. Pimblett respected Oliveira's dangerous skills on the ground, but also mentioned that Charles sometimes takes unnecessary risks during his fights. He emphasized the big jump in weight from 145 to 155 pounds, something many casual fans don't fully appreciate. Because Oliveira has a build similar to Pimblett's, he believes the natural size difference will be noticeable, especially in a striking-focused fight.
Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
So,
he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
Exciting. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145 to 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that £10 makes a big difference. And especially like Charles is like my height, Ilia's like down here when I stand up, know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference.
Paddy Pimblett also pointed out that Ilia Topuria might not fully appreciate how big Charles Oliveira appears in person. He explained that fighters moving up from smaller weight classes often underestimate the physical strength and presence of their bigger opponents until they face them face to face. Pimblett gave examples like Bobby Green and Michael Chandler, fighters who seem more intimidating on paper than they actually were in person. He suggested this could be an important factor for Topuria when he steps into the octagon against Oliveira.
Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is when he stands opposite him. Fighters do that with me, who fight at lightweight. Know what I mean? I'll never forget Bobby Green looking over at me and being like, "What? He's big, him." Same with Chandler. Like people thought Chandler was going to be bigger than me, and he just weren't.
Joshua Van admitted he's a fan of both fighters, but when it comes to picking a winner, he leaned toward Ilia Topuria. He said it's hard to doubt someone like Ilia with the run he's been on lately. Van praised Ilia's skills and confidence, calling him a very complete and dangerous fighter. He also mentioned that their fighting styles are similar, which made him feel more connected to Topuria's approach inside the cage. Because of that, Van said he has to go with Ilia to win.
I like both of them, but Ilia right now, man, you can't doubt that motherfucker, you know what I mean? So he's very good. And we kind of got like the same style of fighting, so I gotta go with him.
Khamzat Chimaev praised Ilia Topuria's skills and accomplishments in the UFC. He remembered training with Topuria early on at All Stars Gym before Ilia became widely known. Even back then, Chimaev said Topuria was already competing at a high level in Brave FC, just like himself. He admired Ilia's strong work ethic and drive, noting it was clear from the start that Topuria was destined for big things. Now, Chimaev added, Topuria has nearly achieved everything a fighter can aim for in the sport.
Очень известный сейчас боец. Ты с ним вроде как давно знаком. Он тренировался в Альстаре вместе, вот до еще его всей известности. Когда вот тренировки ты его видел, ты видел этот потенциал будущий?
Ну, конечно, просто тогда, в то время, этот был он хорошим топовым бойцом в Брейве. Как и я, мы оба там выступали. Видно было, потому что он такой пахарь и хочет добиться чего-то в своей жизни. И парень добился всех высот, которые можно в этом спорте добиться.
Michael Bisping analyzed a potential fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. He described Oliveira as an aggressive fighter who constantly moves forward, using powerful punches, knees, and elbows, while always looking for submission chances. Bisping noted that Topuria would be making his debut in the lightweight division for this fight. He praised Topuria's sharp boxing, heavy hands, relentless pressure, and strong Greco-Roman wrestling skills. Bisping said he wouldn't be surprised if Topuria ended up winning the fight.
Ilia versus Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. We know Charles, he's a dangerous, aggressive. Gonna walk forward, punches, knees, elbows, he'll lock on a submission. Ilia, this is his first fight at lightweight, and with the punching power of Ilia Topuria, the boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it off.
Renato Moicano said the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira is tougher than many people realize. He mentioned that some expect Topuria to easily dominate Oliveira, but he disagrees, calling Charles a very tough opponent. Moicano noted that since Topuria is moving up from 145 pounds, the fight will be challenging for both fighters. At first, Moicano leaned slightly toward Topuria, but after doing a podcast with Charles on his Brazilian channel, he found it hard not to like him. In the end, Moicano is picking Charles, partly because of his Brazilian roots.
You're fighting on the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria card. Charles is a big underdog. How do you see that fight going?
Man, that's a tougher matchup that a lot of people think. They think Topuria gonna run through Charles. You never count Charles Oliveira out. I think he's very tough. But Topuria is good, you know? He's 145. It's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I don't have an opinion on that. I was leaning more to Topuria, but today I just had a podcast with Charles on my Brazilian channel. It's just very hard to not like the guy. That makes harder, you know, to pick against him. So I'm going with Charles just because he's Brazilian.
Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, said he would bet on Ilia Topuria to beat Charles Oliveira, even though he personally hopes Oliveira comes out on top. Mendez noted that Oliveira often fights with an upright posture, which could leave him open to Topuria's boxing style that uses a lower stance and heavy pressure. He He also praised Topuria's ability to land sharp, accurate strikes to the chin, as seen in his fight against Josh Emmett. Mendes believes that if they were to fight, Topuria would likely have more chances to connect with effective shots than Oliveira.
Ilia, power puncher, boxer, low stance, versus Charles Oliveira. If someone gave you $100 grand to bet on that fight, who would you bet?
Ilia. But if you're asking me who I would want to win, I'll put Charles. I'll put my money on Charles.
Yeah.
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin. Really, really nice. Just like what he did with Volk. Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does.
Javier Mendez explained that he favors Ilia Topuria to win because of Topuria's precise close-range boxing and his ability to land powerful, clean punches. He pointed out that Oliveira's tall, upright stance makes him vulnerable and said it would be difficult for Oliveira to take Topuria down without using well-timed knees or front kicks. While Oliveira has the reach advantage and can throw dangerous kicks, Mendez believes Topuria has more tools and a better chance to come out victorious in the fight.
Why else do you think you would pick Ilia over Charles? What is it about his skill set that you like more?
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and when he gets inside, he's going to use that boxing, and Charles' head's going to be up, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin on the inside. Really, really nice, just like what he did with Volk. And I think if Charles doesn't get him up the middle with knees or front kicks up the middle, he's going to have a hard time with his boxing against him, and he's going to have a hell of a time trying to take him down. So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, body, head type thing, low, high, he could do really well with that.
Both MMA Guru and Demetrius Johnson shared their views on the potential fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. MMA Guru called it a major pay-per-view draw, even though no titles would be at stake, and described it as an exciting matchup. However, he also expressed some doubt about how Topuria will adjust to moving up to 155 pounds. Demetrius Johnson added that Topuria is actually a big fighter, usually walking around at about 191 pounds. Johnson said it was surprising that Topuria stayed at featherweight for so long and agreed that moving up to lightweight makes sense. He also noted that it's always interesting to see how fighters perform when they move up to a higher weight class.
If Ilia Topuria fights Charles Oliveira on a pay-per-view, that's a big deal.
Oh, it's going to be bigger.
They don't need to wait for an interim belt. They don't need to wait for an undisputed. So, yeah. I don't know how he's going to do it lightweight, though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger from when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145 seems almost like, how did he do that? Yep. But now that he's going up to 155, I always like when athletes go up.
Mateus Gamrot shared his thoughts on the upcoming UFC 317 fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria, picking Oliveira to win by knockout. While he acknowledged Topuria's power and the threat he poses if he lands clean shots, Gamrot believes the size difference and Oliveira's greater experience will be key. He pointed out Oliveira's striking ability, reach, and long history competing at a high level in the lightweight division as giving him a significant advantage. Gamrot sees Oliveira as a more seasoned and versatile fighter compared to a featherweight moving up in weight and expects Oliveira to finish the fight before it goes the distance.
Ilia or Charles?
Interesting matchup. The both guys has changed. Like if Ilia hit Charles Oliveira head, so he can knock him down for sure. But I think Oliveira is so big for him and for all-rounder fighter, and I think Oliveira will win this fight.
Mateus Gamrot said the fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria is an exciting matchup that could go either way, though he slightly favors Oliveira. He acknowledged that Topuria has the power to end the fight with a single clean shot, but highlighted Oliveira's size, experience, and grappling as important advantages. Gamrot pointed out that if the fight goes to the ground, Oliveira's submission skills and control could cause serious problems for Topuria. While Oliveira can sometimes be unpredictable, Gamrot believes his strong ground game might be the deciding factor in what could be a very close fight.
Wow, you think Oliveira's going to win? I haven't heard a lot of people say that.
I think so. He's big. It depends how his performance will be in the fight, because sometimes he looks bad, but sometimes he looks fantastic. So I think that in the ground he will be much better for Ilia. especially like the gabarit is much different. Oliveira is big guy, Ilia is small guy. So if Oliveira catch him in the ground, I think this is gonna be big problem. But like I say, Ilia can knock him out for him also, you know. So this is like 50-50, but I think Oliveira will win.
So what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira? We would love to hear your thoughts, so share your thoughts in the comment section and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video.